Hello and happy Monday, everyone. Around here, we always say Money Monday because you should start your week off as a business owner thinking first and foremost about your revenue and your profit. And so today, I want to talk with those of you who are consultants, leadership coaches, trainers, experts, and service providers about how to recession proof your business. Now, if you're scrolling through LinkedIn and you're like, who is this woman who seems so happy to talk about recession proofing your business? I'm Angelique Rewers, CEO and founder of Bold House, and we are the leading experts at helping experts to win corporate clients. Now, when we say corporate, we're really talking about the whole mammoth universe out there of organizations. So really any client, whether that's higher ed or nonprofit or mid-market companies, any type of organization that you want to sell to, including those awesome brands out there that we all know. But today I want to talk about how you're going to recession proof your business because everyone is losing their heads on Wall Street. And if you follow the market, then you know that the last, 2-3 weeks have been particularly chaotic out there, right? We saw crypto completely tank. I remember about 6 months ago, I guess it was a little bit longer than that. It was back in November. I was asked to co-present a mastermind at Grant Cardone's offices with a friend of mine, Pete Vargas. And one of the other experts there said to me, Angelique, do you think Bitcoin's ever going to go under 30,000 again? And I said, of course it's going to, because that's what the market does. It goes up, it goes down. So we were we were chatting about that back in November, and here we are now in May. Target had really poor earnings, and so their stock has recently gone down. So things aren't great in the market. It's all over the place. And of course, the experts can't agree as to whether or not we're already in a recession, as Elon Musk predicts that we are. You have Elon Musk saying we're already in a recession. You have, Wells Fargo and Deutsche Bank and Bank of America all saying that we're heading into a recession. You have a study or a survey that came out from Bloomberg that says there's a 30% chance by the end of 2023 that we might see a recession here in the US. And then you have CEOs of organizations like UBS and JP Morgan that think this is all overblown and the Fed can absolutely pull off what's called a soft landing with some of what they're doing to try to tamp down inflation, and maybe we won't even have a recession. So the thing is, what are you supposed to do as a consultant, a coach, somebody who you may be the sole breadwinner in your house? You may also be, maybe not the sole breadwinner in your household, but the family really counts on the revenue that you bring in through your business, or you could be nearing retirement and really putting money away to be able to do that. Or you could just be getting started, and the last thing you want to do is have your dream of getting this business off the ground have a very short trajectory and find yourself back in job hunting because your business didn't make it. We have seen so many people, millions and millions of people starting their own businesses in the last couple of years. The number just keeps skyrocketing. And so there's a lot more competition out there. There's also a lot more opportunity out there. So we want to make sure that you guys have some strategies in place of what you can do in the next 30, 45, 60 days to really recession proof your business. And here's the bonus, and this is why I am excited to talk about this. All the things that you do to recession proof your business are all things that you should be doing in your business anyway. These are the things that we are always talking at Bold House with in terms of our Bold House collective members, our private clients, our playmakers in our various programs. These are the things that you should be doing right now. Hey guys, good morning. Oh, I'm so glad someone just said, I'm so glad you're talking on this topic. I was just reading an article about this. So yeah, this is really, really important for you to be looking at in your business. And I want to give you things that are really tangible. And again, these aren't things because of from my mind, it's not about operating in fear. It's about operating your business where you're really thinking about, how do I drive a business that's going to generate seven figures in profit for me? All these folks are always out there talking about seven-figure businesses. The problem is, for a lot of seven-figure business owners, they're bringing in seven figures on the top line, and oftentimes they're negative on the bottom line. That's the last thing that we want for your business. So these are really tried and true principles, things that we want to get tightened up in your business to make sure that no matter what happens in the market, whether Elon Musk is right, or Bank of America is right, or UBS is right, or JP Morgan is right, or whoever is right about what's going to happen over the next 18 months, let's make sure that you're in a great place to have the financial performance in your consulting, coaching, or other services-based business that you want to have. All right, so let's get into these strategies. I'm going to give you 7. So if you're following along and you want to make notes of this, I'm going to go through 7 strategies that you want to take care of. And the first one is to get with your attorney, your business attorney, wherever you are based. So if you're in London, get an attorney that's in London. If you're in New York, get an attorney that's in New York, and have them tighten up your standard client contract. I cannot tell you how many times we have a new client come work with us at Bold House, and one of the first things we do is we talk to them about what's in their pipeline and their client agreements. Now, we're not attorneys. We're looking at this from purely a business perspective, but I can't tell you how many contracts. If I had to kind of estimate this off the top of my head, I would tell you easily 50%, at least 1 in 2 of the experts that we work with, when we look at their client agreements, are silent to cancellation policies. What is the cancellation policy? And that leaves you really exposed. Certainly, when the pandemic hit, lots of experts found themselves exposed. When there are market downturns, or there's a crisis at a particular organization, and maybe it's just impacting that one client engagement that you have, or it's market wide, it ends up being a recession. You need to make sure you're protected for cancellation policies. As a small business owner, you are proactively managing your bandwidth. So if you're looking forward at the next 30, 60, 90 days of client support, and you think that you need 30 hours a month or 20 hours a month to support one of your clients, then you are adjusting what you're doing in your business. You may be delaying other clients from getting started. You may be bringing team members on to support you. You may be backing off of pursuing certain other opportunities, or turning even down speaking opportunities, because you're counting on that client engagement being on your books and you needing to have the time available to support that client. In exchange for you making that time available to your client, there needs to be an equitable exchange from their end to not just pull the rug out from under you with, 30 minutes notice that you are no longer needed. So standard operating procedure would be at least a 30 to 60 days notice before a client can cancel on you. And in many cases, they would owe whatever is due during those times. So if you were planning, let's say you're a coach, and you were planning to do 5 team coaching experiences between now and, say, the end of July, well, with a 60 days notice, they would still need to pay you for that. And it would make sense, obviously, for them to continue forward. But if they wanted to cancel after that, they could. So you want to make sure your contract is crystal clear on that. That, to me, is one of those non-negotiables when you're working with a new client. Again, as a small business owner, you need to plan your bandwidth, your availability to be able to support them. That is then going to impact the decisions that you make in your business about other things that you could be saying yes to. So there has to be that equitable exchange of value there. So please make sure that you have that in place. And if you don't have that in place with any of your clients, then the opportunity to put that in place is typically when they make any type of add-on to the agreement. So if a client comes to you and says, hey, we also want you to do this, or we also want you to do that, that's a great opportunity to update your contract that you have in place with them. So you want to make sure you've got that in place. Yeah. So exactly. You've got, one contract could be $37,000. So you're going to lose a lot of money that way. And again, it's not to screw over your clients. It's about that equitable exchange because you're preparing to support them. And wouldn't they be upset if you said you were going to support them for the next 3 months and then all of a sudden you say, oh, sorry, you know what? I just didn't make the time for you. I can't do it after all. You wouldn't run your business that way. They can't expect it to be all one-sided. There needs to be a arm's length agreement, a fair handshake between you and your clients. The second strategy is to make sure that you are always paid before you deliver the value to the client. So it's about structuring your payments to always make sure that A, there's a deposit, and B, that you're getting paid in advance of delivering your services to the organization. So as a for instance, let's say you had a 12-month engagement. One of the things we love to do at Bold House is really show our clients not how to do once and done, go in, coach one person, be done, or a half-day workshop and be done, but really build the bigger multi-phase, multi-component client engagements that ultimately are multi-5 figures, multi-6 figures, 7 figures, and beyond. The key then is to structure your payments with the client to get paid in advance, not for the whole thing. Most companies are not going to pay you 100% upfront. Now, you can certainly incentivize them to try and do that. But what you can do is hold the line on making sure that there's an adequate deposit, and then you're getting paid in advance for, let's say, the quarter that's coming up. So if you had, for example, a 12-month client engagement, you might structure it as getting a 25% deposit upfront to get started. And then each subsequent 25% payment would be made 30 days before the next quarter starts. That way, you're getting paid. This is not a cash on delivery business. It's not like you're delivering reams of paper, and when you show up with the reams of paper, the client is now going to pay you. There's considerable work that's done in advance. Now, sometimes during the negotiation process with your clients, you will have to really hold the line on this. And that is a skill of learning to be a good negotiator, having your business attorney, if you end up with some of these larger brands that are going to try to put their procurement process on you. One of the things to remember is that their procurement process, especially when you get into larger organizations, is designed for making large procurements of things like pens and paper clips and brake pads and reams of paper and desk chairs and laptops, which is very different than providing professional service and expertise, consulting, keynote speaking, training, copywriting, quality assurance services, whatever the case may be. So a lot of times it's about sitting down with their team to make sure they understand that the way that you have to run your business is very different than, delivering a bunch of pens. Right. But make sure it's really, really important that you're getting paid before you deliver that value. I can't tell you, we've been doing this a long time. I started teaching small business owners how to sell to corporate clients back in 2006. So a long time. You can start adding up the years there. And so I'll never forget, we've seen 2 major recessions during that time. Right. And I remember during the sort of 2008, 2009 situation, we had a client come to us and it was a mess because they had been delivering all of these coaching and training services to the organization. And the recession ended up pushing that organization into bankruptcy. And the second that they went into bankruptcy, anybody that they owed money to, unless it was a secured creditor, they did not get paid. So she ended up losing, it was just over $50,000 because it was about 3-4 months worth of work. And her invoices were outstanding. She kept, calling, but didn't stop delivering services because they hadn't paid. And then the recession was sort of the straw that broke the camel's back. And she ended up being out about $65,000. So you want to make sure you're getting paid. If you have invoices that are overdue, it's really important that you not continue to deliver services to that organization until you're paid. And sometimes it's just a really stern conversation where you're holding a boundary with the accounts payable department. Okay, the third strategy. And I stole this expression from an executive at AT&T who spoke on our stage a couple of years ago at one of our Bold House conferences. And she said to our audience, don't be skinny in your relationships. That is, don't be narrow in your relationships. One of the biggest problems as you head into a recession is you don't know who's going to jump ship or be asked to leave the ship. So sometimes organizations, obviously, they do layoffs, they do right sizing. Other times they go out to their employees and they say, who's going to raise their hand and voluntarily take an early retirement package or a severance package, right? And so the worst position that you can be in as a consultant, as a coach, as a service provider, as a keynote speaker, as a trainer is being in a situation where you have a relationship with one person at your client. I don't care if it's a nonprofit. I don't care if it's mid-market. I don't care if it's a college, a university, a major corporation, a large, small enterprise. You have to have multiple relationships inside of an organization. And again, this doesn't even matter if it's just for a recession or not. You never know when someone's going to leave. We saw this with the great resignation, right? The great sort of reevaluation of all things. Everybody has a different word for the R. But the bottom line is you need to have relationships across the organization and you need to be proactive about building that. One of the things we talk to our Bold House Collective members about is doing success showcases. So if you have a really successful initial engagement with your point of contact inside that organization, really help them brag and also knowledge share across their organization. Ask for strategic introductions. Introduce yourself to other leaders in the organization and say, hey, I just wanted to reach out and introduce myself. I'm working with Jackie, who's leading, this business unit over here, and we're having some great success. And I thought it would be great to reach out so you have me as a resource in your Rolodex as well. So you can host executive roundtables internally. You can help your client do a success showcase internally. You can ask for strategic introductions, or you can introduce yourself to decision makers across the organization. But what you don't want to do is have a relationship that's exactly one person deep, especially right now, because let me tell you, if Bank of America is right, if Elon Musk is right, if the study from Bloomberg is right, and we end up in a recession, then we're going to see massive musical chairs happen over the next 6, 9, 12, 18 months. You don't want those relationships to bail on you, and now you're left holding the bag. And let me tell you something, for whatever reason, psychologically, when you have a leader who gets let go or chooses to leave, the person who takes over their seat often wants to go with the outside experts and vendors and service providers that they have a relationship with, which isn't you unless you've made sure that it's you. So you don't want to be on the way out just because your point of contact happens all the time. Love this. Angelique, I sometimes work with government agencies. Do you have any ideas on how to approach them with your process when they are very firm in their process? Yeah, government is a lot tougher. You have more control over the process with government when the engagements are smaller. So typically the DOFA, the Delegation of Financial Authority inside of government organizations, has various sort of breakpoints. So for example, a leader might have the delegation of financial authority where they can spend $10,000, $25,000, and they have a lot of flexibility over that. They might be able to pay for it with their P card, for example, or they may be able to just do a sole source award, not having to go through an RFP process in the government. So you have a little bit more flexibility there. Unfortunately, because the government is all about transparency and control, which thank you, because that's all of our taxpayer dollars, they are more rigid in that. So you're going to have a lot less control in that process. But you can talk to them about it, because depending on how they enter certain things into their system in terms of when they consider something delivered, that's typically how you can get around it. So for example, in certain government contracts, by providing a plan to them, providing certain milestones to them, you don't have to wait until it's finished, you can create milestones, and the payments can then be tied to various milestones along the way. They're still going to obviously have a lot of control, but sometimes it has to do with the smaller engagements. And sometimes it has to be creative in working with your client to say, look, we obviously can't wait 6 months for this whole project to be done to get paid. So we need to create milestones along the way so that you can say, yes, this is done, so that we can get payment. The nice thing with government, though, unlike a company that could go bankrupt on you, is that you will get paid by the government as long as you meet the agreed upon deliverables, timelines, the various performance indicators that say this has been done. The government's not going to default on you. So at least the federal government. We can talk about California and some of the other state issues that have come up, but certainly federal government in the United States isn't going to default on you. They are going to pay. So there you go. Okay. Moving on. So don't be skinny in your relationships. That was number 3. You want to be wide in your relationships, right? Okay. Next, proactively educate your clients on how you can help them in a volatile market. I'm going to say this again. This one's really, really important. If you take nothing else away from today, it's probably this one. What you don't want to do is wait until your clients are letting people go, closing offices, closing locations, cutting what they consider discretionary spending, cutting travel. You don't want to wait until they do those things to then try to tell them, when they've already reached crisis mode, that there are all of these things you can help your clients with. That is a bad, bad time to try to talk to somebody. I want you to think about this. In the middle, one of the things we like to do with our kids is literally do fire drills. We want to make sure our kids, they're now 12, they're going to be 13, but since the time they were little, we've talked to them about, in case of a fire, where do you go? We have 2 balconies off the top floor that both get to places that have then like roofs to get out, right? So we talk to them before the house is on fire about what to do in case of a fire. God forbid that we ever have to actually deal with that, but we go through it every year with our kids. The last time to be talking about them about what to do in a calm way would be if there was a fire in our house, right? You have to talk with people before they're slashing spending and slashing outside service providers and experts. So if you talk to them now, that means if they get rushed into a conference call or a meeting where they have to discuss cuts, Uber just about 3-4 weeks ago came out and said, we're cutting spending. Facebook a month ago came out and said, we're cutting spending. So we know this is already going on. Just the mere mention of the R word causes companies to start looking at their spending. Inflation is causing companies to look at cutting spending. So you want to talk to your clients right now, and you want to say, I actually drafted this up, so I'm going to read this. I don't like to read when I'm doing something like this, but I want to give you some exact casual language on how to reach out to clients so it doesn't feel weird or salesy, but rather is coming from a place that's really helpful. So what you would want to do is just say, hey, Jonathan, I'm sure you've been watching the news on the economy and the market's ups and downs. Some organizations will no doubt take some measures before the end of the year to make sure they're in a healthy position to navigate these waters. We have a number of areas at our firm of expertise that can help should a market downturn happen. And purely from an advanced planning standpoint, it would be beneficial if you and I scheduled 30 minutes next week for me to share some of those areas of expertise and some of those services with you, as well as some of the steps that our other clients are taking to be prepared for whatever is to come in the next few months. So it's a very sort of casual, like, look, I know you're probably watching internally. You guys are probably discussing what's happening. And so there are some things that, should things kind of go south, we can help you with. Now, this works even better as a Loom video or a bomb video, a quick text to your clients, quick LinkedIn message, or a phone call or a voicemail, in addition to being able to send it in an email. But you really want to think about, what are those things that those areas that we could help our clients with, should in fact they start needing to reorganize? Should they, in fact, need to really boost their sales or their marketing? If they need to let some people go, if they need to get their employees on board with cutting discretionary spending and extraneous expenses, what are the things that you can help with? Sometimes it just helps by mind mapping it out, by going to CNBC and reading all the articles, Yahoo Finance, and reading all the articles and saying, wow, I could help if this happened. I could help if this happens. For those of you who are coaches or people experts, really think about what it does. We're already in a burnout epidemic. Everyone has reached their breaking point. To add this on top is just like, talk about putting, a grenade in the bunker with everybody. It is just really tense to go this direction. So you want to reach out proactively. This is why, as an aside to my Bold House Collective members out there who are watching this video, this is why your credibility and capabilities briefing document is so important. Why having that slide deck and being able to navigate those conversations with clients. Because I got to tell you, if it were me, my CCB right now would be getting updated with a list of things that I can help my clients with specifically as they navigate a market downturn. For those of you who don't know what a CCB is and you don't have one to navigate a conversation with your clients, you need it. Reach out to our team. We do these, something we introduced a couple of months ago is we do a done with you workshop to literally help you build your credibility and capabilities briefing document so that you can have a conversation with a decision maker, even if they're not ready to buy from you, even if it's just educating them on how you can help. That's what your CCB is for. And if you don't have that, that's one of the most important things to get in place. So reach out proactively. Speaking of which, the other thing you want to do is if you have something that's planning on being in person in the next 6 months, we told people this at the beginning of the pandemic. Make sure your clients know that if for some reason they need something to move virtual, you are still prepared to do that. Just mention that in case they can't travel or they don't want to spend money on you traveling. I know we're starting to move back into a world where we can actually be together in person, but in the off chance that you can't because of cost cutting at your clients, make sure that you know that you can do anything virtually as well. All right, number 6, diversification. This is so, so important. You need to diversify your revenue coming into your business. Rule number 1 in business is follow the money. Follow the money. So one place you want to be looking at diversifying your business right now is in where is your revenue coming from in terms of which type of clients. Government clients, one of the nice things about government clients, even though they can be a pain with their contracts and their, payment schedules and things of that nature, one of the nice things about government clients is they're pretty recession proof, but they're not the only ones who are recession proof. Higher education, colleges and universities are very recession proof. If anything, a lot of times they actually get boosted during a recession because people who get laid off often use that time to go back to school to get another degree or certifications. Other recession-proof industries are defense contractors and government contractors, which are not always the big guys. It doesn't have to be the Northrop Grummans and the Lockheed Martins or the Raytheons of the world. Right in your backyard, there are companies that sell to the Pentagon, that sell to civilian agencies, that sell to your state and local government agencies. And those government contractors, those companies that they in turn have their customer base in the government space are often very recession proof. There are also certain segments of the market that tend to be recession proof. Certainly discount brands are a big one. The spirits, wine, and liquor industry is very recession proof, as are consumer brands, consumer household products. People still need to do their laundry. They still need to buy their toilet paper. They still need their paper towels. So consumer brands, especially discount consumer brands. So you want to be looking at, wait a second, are all of my clients coming from one size company or from one industry? If they are, now is the time to be speaking at events, doing outreach, hosting executive forums and executive roundtables, and getting in front of decision makers who are from other types of organizations. So really look at diversifying your revenue, but that's always a good idea, but especially as to where it's coming from. And make sure you always have about 25% of your clients in those recession-proof industries. And there are tons and tons of articles. A great place to look are stocks that do, you can Google this, stocks that do well in a recession. And you will get 50 pages of articles of stocks that do well in a recession. And rule number one in business is follow the money. So right now is a good time to say, you know what? I need to get out there and have some clients from some other industries because I'm very tech heavy, or I'm very hospitality heavy, or I'm very, heavy in the consulting space or professional services companies. So you want to look at what those are for you and where your diversification lies. And that's very important for your business. Number six, strategy number 6 is master how to proactively create conversations with your ideal decision makers. It's about being proactive to get in front of those decision makers and be able to create those conversations. On average, when we pull our ideal target market, when we do the intake questionnaires with our clients and we ask them to tell us specifically, let's look at all the clients you've had in the last 12 months and let's go through and see where those clients came from. 90% come from word of mouth. And you guys, that number is way too high. Now, word of mouth is amazing. When someone sends business your way and that opportunity falls in your lap, that is gold. That is a gift from the universe and something that we should have tons of gratitude for. However, it puts you in a helpless place when it comes to your business if you are waiting for the universe to send an opportunity your way, right? Like, that's great. We should start every day with an expectant energy that the universe is going to bring us exactly what we need in our lives. But the universe also works on the law of cause and effect, right? And so you need to get in front of real decision makers, and you need to master the art of creating those conversations with decision makers. And if I may say so, you need to be able to do it without being salesy, because being salesy is an instantaneous turnoff to decision makers. And that's because any salesy approach relies on convincing the decision maker that you need that that they need that product, that they need that service, that they need to meet with you so that they can buy from you, right? When in fact, typically the best way to get in front of a decision maker is by both providing value as well as educating them on when and where they're going to need you in the future. Because let's face it, if you have a solid business, they're going to need you at some point. They probably just don't need you right now. And it's really helping our clients get over. I would say that's part of our secret sauce as to why our clients at Bold House do so well, because we teach them how to get over that objection of how to meet with a decision maker, even when they don't think they need you right now. It's something we're going to talk a lot about because so much has changed on this at Bold House Groove in October. That's our annual conference, and we'll be back together in Fort Lauderdale for 3.5 days. I'm so excited. So if you're not sure how to get in front of decision makers proactively, and you look at your last 10, 12 clients and you're like, oh, sugar, I'm not proactively getting in front of people. It's all word of mouth. You should be at Groove in October. It's boldhousegroove.com as an FYI. All right. The last piece of this, rule number 7 about recession proofing your business, is to, in fact, 10x your pipeline. And part of that, it's kind of like a sub point under number 7, is you have to know your numbers. And when you know your numbers, you're going to want to 10x your pipeline. Some of the numbers you really need to know in your business is your average sales cycle. So, how long does it take from the time that someone starts talking with you about an opportunity for it actually to turn into a sale where you have both a signed contract and a deposit paid? Because until the money is in the bank, it's not a sale, right? I mean, people can sign contracts all day long, but until they've paid you, it is not a done deal. So, what is that timeline for you on average? Really important. If I saw you on the street and I pull you aside and I say, "Hey, I know you. All right, tell me your average sales cycle." If you don't know that number right away off the top of your head, you've got a problem with your pipeline, because that means you don't know exactly how large your pipeline needs to be. Another number you really, really need to know is what percent of opportunities that come to you are actually closed. Because how often do people reach out and they're maybe just kicking the tires, or they're just inquiring, or they think they have the buy in of other leaders in their organization, but it turns out that actually they don't have the buy-in of their other peers or the other decision makers, and so the opportunity falls through. So what is your average sales cycle from the time an opportunity is first identified to actually getting paid with the signed agreement? How many of the opportunities that you think are in your pipeline actually turn into a closed deal? Are you closing 50% or are you closing 10%? And the next thing that you need to look at in your pipeline is, how many clients then do you need in that pipeline at any given time to cover not just your monthly nut, but to reach your financial goal for the year? Folks are really great at bringing in just enough revenue to sustain their lifestyle, but they're not so great. Where the struggle really comes in for folks is really growing the revenue at the pace they want and really creating that breathing room in their business. So it's important to understand how many clients you can serve at any given time. Of course, that depends a little bit on whether or not you have a bench or not, but also looking at, of these opportunities in my pipeline and where they are, do I have enough to not create a feast or famine cycle in my revenue? Because if you're already someone who tends to feast or famine in your revenue, let's say the recession does happen, right? What's going to happen to the famine? It's going to get elongated and it's going to dip lower. It's going to be a pretty stressful place for you to be. I don't want to see you there. I don't want to see anybody there ever. One of the things we just talked to one of our mastermind groups about is, how do you in fact level out and just really release the feast or famine cycle from your business once and for all. And one of the key things about that is 10xing your pipeline and how much is in your pipeline. It has got to be a lot fuller than you think. At any given time, only 1 to 3% of your ideal target clients are ready now to buy from you. So you're saying if there's about 100 potential opportunities in your pipeline, then there's about 3 folks who are really going to be ready now. That's a big number, you guys. That is a really, really big number. All right, I'm going to look at some questions over here, but I'm just going to review really quickly what those 7 rules are to recession proof your business. The first one is to make sure your attorney works with you to tighten up your contracts to protect you. The second one is to make sure you're paid before you deliver value to your clients. The third one is, don't be skinny in your relationships. Make sure you have many, many relationships inside every organization that you work with, because of the musical chairs that can happen. Number 4, be proactive in educating your clients about all the ways that you can support them, specifically if in fact the market starts to tank and Elon Musk is right, we're in a recession. Make sure you diversify your revenue, particularly what types of clients that you're working with. Number 6, master the skill of proactively creating conversations with decision makers. And number 7, 10x that pipeline, because you're going to need more opportunities in that pipeline if the market heads down. Why? Because more of the opportunities that you think are going to come to fruition will be canceled or delayed. and you don't want to create that stress for yourself. So those are our 7 rules for recession proofing your business. I'm still thinking about diversification because I see a question over here, Mark Mraz. Oh my God, Mark, it's so it's good to see you, Mark. Oh my God, talk about a blast from the past there. Customer diversification is key to not only some stability in revenue, but more importantly to company valuation. Amen to that, Mark. I recommend no more than 15% of your revenue come from any one customer. I would even say for a small business, Mark, that's even high, right? Because I mean, to have 15% walk out the door. I met a woman years ago at a conference in New York. I was speaking. She came up to me and Comcast was her client and they made up 80% of her revenue, Mark. It was unbelievable. And of course, they had just canceled her contract. She had been working with them, I think she said 4 or 5 years, and they pulled the rug out from under her. She did not have, by the way, any type of protection around cancellation on that. They found a cheaper service provider and vendor, and it took 80% of her revenue out the door. I broke out in hives. I mean, it wasn't even my situation, and I was breaking out in hives thinking about it. Likewise, my best clients also understand the importance of vendor diversification. We have all seen how supply chain struggles have created terrible concerns. Oh my gosh, but sure to diversify your supply chain too. Amen to that. You know, we have, for those of you, especially in the automotive industry, we have quite a number of you in our community who are in the automotive industry. And obviously, for those of you who are consultants, one of the biggest issues you've been trying to navigate with them is, in fact, the supply chain. For those of you who rely on supply chain in order to serve your customers, especially for those of you heading into the WeBank conference 2 weeks from now up in Atlanta, we'll see you there. You know, for those of you who are providing something into the supply chain for these organizations, and then thus you have a supply chain, you've got to look at that diversification of that as well. And in fact, that's one of the things we're going to talk about on stage at WeBank, because you today need to figure out how to reduce the risk for your customers and your clients. And I got to tell you, most small business owners fail to talk about the risks with their clients, and they fail to have a plan that they can show their clients and say, look, we know that the greatest single points of failure with an investment that you're about to make with our firm are X, Y, and Z. We know that because we look at the data in the market that these are the single points of failure that happen whenever you invest in these things. So we have taken it upon ourselves to create a 12-point risk mitigation strategy for our clients that we're bringing to the table. So I think that's to Mark's point there, supply chain is a really big one. The other one that I don't want to say supply chain, but obviously the bandwidth of teams right now is a really big problem, right? The redundancy of expertise on a team. If you're a consultant or a service provider, you don't have a product to worry about in the supply chain. Your product is your people. It's the experts on your team. And everyone is aware of what's going on in terms of the Great Resignation and just the way that it's challenging right now to hire certain types of talent. So if you're a service provider and expert and you have a bench or you have a team of experts, you own a digital marketing agency, you own an architecture firm, etc., you need to make sure that you're talking to your clients about what you're doing to reduce their risks around, your team and how solidified that is. Awesome. So you guys, thank you so much for joining us. If you have a question, you can certainly ask me really quick before we wrap up here. The key thing to remember about the recession is we're not going to know that we're in a recession until we have 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth here in the US, right? So we always know we're in a recession sort of after we're already in the recession, and then everybody has their hair on fire when the news breaks. That's the worst time for you to start planning for this. So shore up your strategies right now to make sure that your coaching business, your consulting business, your expert services-based business is prepared, and you should be doing these things anyway. Right? You should be doing these things anyway. All right, you guys. So that's all for Money Monday. If you're not sure how to proactively get in front of those corporate decision makers, make sure that you join us at Bold House Groove in October. That's our annual conference. We'll be there October 17th through October 20th on the beach in Fort Lauderdale at the beautiful Westin Diplomat. So I know I'll be seeing many of you there, and I will see you guys back here next Monday, if not before then. Have a great rest of your week, you guys.